we'll stop the recording after tonight. We'll.
Okay, so tonight is Lamed Ches Tes, finishing Lamed Ches, and then one sif in Lamed Tes.
Okay, so it's not so long. Okay, so Siman Lamed Ches, Sif Tes, finishing up Machale Akum. Although, if we get involved with the Chol of Yisrael conversation, we can be sitting on here for the whole night. But we'll try not to. All right, so Akum Shabishal B'Shabbos B'Shil Chayla. So let's say you have a guy that cooked on Shabbos. Let's say a Chayla needs to cook. All right? Well, he needs cooked food. So you ask a guy to do it because you're better than having a Yid cook on Shabbos. But the problem is it's B'Shil Akum. So a tavshil asa b'matzah Shabbos. So what about matzah Shabbos? Can you eat it on matzah Shabbos? So we say no. The tavshil does not become mutter. It's only mutter on Shabbos. But matzah Shabbos, it's out. Even for the chayla himself, if he has the opportunity or the availability to eat a different tavshil, but if he doesn't, then he's allowed to eat it. And the kalim, like we discussed yesterday, kalim do become, at least it's a machlokes, but we try and be machmer that kalim do become treif if a guy cooks in them. So they should be kasher. Again, even though the guy did it beheter because it was done on Shabbos, even so, you should still kasher it. Yud beitza, so an egg. This is the most common bishul akum shaila that at least that I get, is that the guy cooked herself eggs. Right? So people are incredulous that there's bishul akum on eggs. Now, eggs certainly go on the king's table, at least for a breakfast. Right? So that it is. The question is, can you eat an egg raw? If you can eat an egg raw, if enough people can eat an egg raw, so then maybe it's considered not bishul akum. So beitza, even though it is raw to be swallowed raw, since that's not a normal way of eating, it's only a push comes to shove, it's an achila. In bishul akum, asura, if the guy cooks it, it's asur. The same thing. So the big hot button topic is, does sushi change the status of fish? Right? One of the big things is each one of these subjects is a shear unto itself, if not multiple shear. But the OU tuna fish, many people don't eat OU tuna fish. Now, if you hold that tuna is eaten raw because many people have sushi, so I don't know if this tuna, I don't know anything about sushi, but let's say fish can be eaten raw and enough people eat sushi. Does that make it that there's no bishul akum issue on fish anymore? Right? Or you want to say beef jerky gets eaten raw, but maybe that's not considered raw because it's dried out, et cetera, et cetera. But that's the point, that if only some people eat it, or it's only eaten al yedei atchak, so then it's still considered bishul akum. So
I think the OU changed their policy now on bishul Yisrael with tuna. They took off the BY.
Yeah,
they used to have an OU BY Bishul Yisrael on some tuna that they sold in Costco. They took it off. I asked them. They said the politics because other people were getting upset. So
interesting. Wow. They used to say that the OUP tuna is Bishul Yisrael. He
confirmed that. He said for the most part, 90-something% of all OU Pesach tuna is Bishul Yisrael.
Interesting. So. Okay, but that's the tumult with the OU. The OU is relying on two coolers for tuna fish. One is that steam is not considered bishul, and two is that it's done in these ships way out of seas, meaning way, I don't know, overseas, but way out, and therefore there's no chashash that you're marrying a guy's daughter. So both are very, they're big coolers, and they combine the two of them. So that's why many people don't like the OU tuna. Fine. Yud Aleph. Paris, Shalonis Bashul Be'ilan, called. So, anyways, bottom line is we paskin eggs do have bishul akum. Right? The only thing is, I don't know if we mentioned this a couple of days ago. So, if a cleaning lady or a whatever, domestic help, cooks eggs for herself. So now maybe there definitely are shitas old eggs don't have bishul akum, and we know that there's shitas that old you don't have to kasher. So do you have to say a double chumrah on a derabanan and make them kasher the pan? Right? Meaning, in order for the pan to be treif, you have to say that eggs have bishul akum, which is a machlokes, and you also have to say that even if the eggs do have bishul akum, it's a machlokes whether it makes the pan treif. So now you have two machlokesim on a derabanan. It's a little much to say that pan has to be kasher. Okay, but that's a little peek into what Rabbanim have to make decisions on. Yud Aleph, Perush Shelo Nispashel Be'ilon, called Sarkon. Let's say a fruit that was not ripe. Nispashel means cooked, but it means it wasn't ripe. Ve'enon nechol and chayin, and they can't be eaten raw because they're not ripe. Ela yidei atchak. Sha'una metagnan oisam b'sukkar. So, because how did they become edible? So the omnim, the workers, they fry it with sugar. Asura b'shum bishalakum, that has an issa b'shum bishalakum. But again, that's if they cook it, not if they dry it out. Yud beis shecher shel tvua. Oh, now this is major right here. Why isn't beer, schnapps, and coffee bishalakum? Right? It's not eaten raw. It can only be eaten cooked, as far as I know. Right? And it's oila shulchan malachim. So why is that not bishalakum? Now, if you come out with a chumrah that's bishalakum, you're going to have a lot of fighting. Right? So shecher shel tvua, beer from grain, v'shel dvash, and honey, noigam by heter l'shtoisa. The minig is we allow it. Afilu b'bayis shemoichur noisei ha'akam, even in the house that the guy sells it. Ve'im b'mashum b'shulei akum, and it doesn't have bishul akum. Ta'tvua b'teila b'mayim, because what's the main reason is because the grain is bottled in the water. Which, just think about it for a second. The grain is bottled in the water. All right, so that means l'chari, you should be able to have it on Pesach. Right? Because it's bottled in the water.
The water's bottled in the grain.
So then if that's the case, so then you can't have it. It's
right.
Zelamai. Well, okay, so that's not such a kasha because you take the chumras both ways. Right? And the raya to this is that it's shahakol, right? You know, anybody here make a mazinus on beer? Right? Or a eitz on a coffee? So that's the raya, because that's why. It's the same reason. You got to make sure that there's no shimrei yayin, the dregs of wine that they put in there, and then of course you get into the single malt that has the what's it called? The sherry, the sherry casks, right? And if you're in a place where people are mezalzel and they're very makel with yayin of a goy, yesh lebal nefesh lahachmar al atzmai gam b'shecher, then you shouldn't drink beer either. Okay, what about coffee? Rabbeinu Shasias coffee, beloy chalav, dim chalav vaday aser, coffee with milk is for sure aser, because he's talking about chalav Yisrael. V'chein chocolada, right? The tea, eitzel akum, chocolate is a hot chocolate, and tea by a goy. Shomer nafshi yachiris atzmai. If you're a shomer, your nefesh, do not have coffee from a guy, tea from a guy, hot cocoa. So according to the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, if you're a shomer nefesh, no Dunkin', no Starbucks, no coffee on the plane, none of that stuff. Right?
What?
Obviously.
What?
Yeah, you heard it here first.
Oh, I didn't want to hear that.
You should have gone to sleep.
I would have listened to it tomorrow.
Yeah, when you're fasting, maybe you would go over your head. But that's, he says a shomer nefesh. Okay, it's a shomer nefesh.
But even the Dunkin' Donuts here on Rockaway Turnpike, it's called Yisrael.
Yeah, but it's not Bishul Yisrael.
No, not Bishul Yisrael. The milk.
Right, so that he's answering it out Bishul Yisrael, not because of the cholav.
Yeah, you can have the milk, you just can't have the coffee.
Okay, just ask for a cup of milk.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, but obviously the minig in the belt is not to paskin this way, and then we do have.
Which part of the coffee process is the bishul? The roasting of the beans or the grinding and brewing?
Both. I would think both. Oh, even you have a problem, Peretz. Even with your roasted beans.
Yeah, they dry out the beans. I believe they roast them.
Right. I hear. I don't know. It's a good one. I don't know. Anyways, okay.
No, but why? Peretz is the one that pours the hot water over it. He's involved with the
they roast the beans when it grows. How they make the beans brown.
Probably the question is, are they edible?
You're not eating it then.
Are they edible that way? Roasted coffee beans edible?
No, you have to put it into water, hot water.
Well, maybe they're edible without it. If they're edible without it, then it's a problem.
Instant coffee could be.
Even though you're involved with the last step of the cooking before you eat it?
Once it's cooked to a stage of that point, then it's not going to...
It's edible. It doesn't make a difference if you take it and finish it.
Yeah. What are you saying, Kitzur?
if you buy instant coffee at a grocery store, it doesn't have to even need it doesn't need hot water because it's dehydrated coffee. Like it's already cooked and everything. You can make it with cold water.
So you're saying that that would be a problem because they cooked it already. Yeah,
It's
that's a good
completely
point.
cooked, and then you're
That's
just
why you
putting
can,
in
right?
cold.
Very good. That's a good point, right? That's why you can make it in a kli sheni, or even make it in a kli rishon because it's cooked already. I mean, we don't do that because of different chumrah. Okay, but then he ends off here. V'yesh matirin b'derech harai. So there are those that allow it, sometimes. Aval derech kvias aser. That's a stronger lashon. Before he said it's shomer nefesh. Here he's saying from the Yad Ephraim that it's arai, meaning once in a while, fine, but a kvias, then it's awesome. Okay, Yud Gimel, Cholav. Now we get to Cholav Akum. Cholav Shechal Be'akum. Vein Yisrael Re'eu. So a guy milks the cow and Yisrael's not watching him. Aser afilu lasis menu gvina. You're not even allowed to make cheese out of it. Ulechatchila, meaning what is that? Because the Gemara says that cheese, treif milk from cows, milk from camels, pigs cannot become cheese. It can't be made into cheese. So l'chara, why do you need a yid to watch the milking? Just make it into cheese, and then if it became cheese, that must be it's kosher. So the Gemara says we're chayshid that inside the cheese has holes in it. At least the cheese in the comics and the cartoons, right? So the cheese has holes, and it might be treif liquid in those holes. So that's why we can't use it as a proof. The yid has to be there when they first begin the milking. So you should see that the kli is clean. Because how do you know that the guy didn't have treif milk in there from before? And the minig is to be machmer, not to put the milk in the regular guy's kalim. You should have separate kalim, or try to. Ushvachos and shvachos is goyim, female goyim. Shechovas a behema bebeis Yisrael bedir shalai, that they milk the behema in a yid's house or in a yid's barn. Kol makom shein beis akum mafsik ve'in lochash behema tameya, as long as there's no behemas tameas on the farm, meaning treif animals, and the guy's property is not in between the yid's property, then you don't need to watch it. Then you can let them milk. You hear what this is saying? Meaning, let's say, as long as it's in a yid's farm, you're allowed to have a guy do the milking, and a yid does not have to watch it. As long as there's the guy's property doesn't separate the two yid properties. Because if it does, then we're afraid that the guy will smuggle some stuff in there. Right, so that's why if you go to a Jewish farm and you don't see any mashkiach around, it's because you don't need the mashkiach, because it's in the yid's property. But if the guy's house is mafsik, the Yisrael needs to be there. And even a katan or katana, because all we're looking for is that they should be a little scared that somebody will rat them out. So any kid from 9 years old and on is okay. Fine. Yudal gvina sa'akam asuris. Cheese from a guy is asur. That's a separate isur having nothing to do with chalav. All right. Now the reason is because the way they would make the milk curdle into cheese, they would use the stomachs of treif animals. So therefore, it would be that's the main reason. So if a yid is watching the milking and the making of the cheese, if the cheese when it was being made belonged to the Yisrael, so it's mutar. But when the cheese was being made, it belonged to the guy, then it is awesome. And of course, it goes without saying we don't have to discuss Ramesh's heter. Just very quickly, the reason people say that it's called cholav stam, that's a made-up terminology. It's either cholav Yisrael or cholav akum. You don't see anywhere in the Kitzur talking about cholav stam. It's made up just for clarification's sake. According to Ramesha, all milk in America is cholav Yisrael. It's not cholav akum, it's cholav Yisrael. There is no heter in Shulchan Aruch for cholav akum. There's a heter if a yid sees it. Ramesha's heter is that it's an anan sadi, meaning we know, and since we know, it's as if a yid actually watched it. That's Ramesha's major chiddush. Not because we know that there's no camel's milk, etc. It has nothing to do with it. Ramesha, it's as a din in edus of an Anan Sadi. The Ramosha holds that an Anan Sadi makes it that a Yid watched it. That is his Chiddush, right? Which many disagree with, but many agree with it. But so again, when people say, like during Aseret Yimei Tshuva, maybe you should be machmer, like we said 2 days ago in Pasakum, you should be machmer Aseret Yimei Tshuva. I don't know if we said it 2 days ago. Okay, but what about Cholav Akum? If you hold of Cholav Akum, if you hold of Ramosha's Heter, it's Cholav Yisrael. I see no reason why you can't have it during a Aseret Yimei Tshuva. Okay, there are some that say you should, you shouldn't. They quote Ramosha as saying that. He says you can even have it during a Aseret Yimei Tshuva. Fine. Tesla Vachema, so butter. So now butter is interesting because that changed. In Shulchan Aruch, it was totally whether you can keep butter of a guy, like break stones and all of that with the regular OU, was totally in a minig. So chema tali v'minig hamakaymas, it's totally in the different communities. Yesh makaymas she'ein oichlin chema shel akum. There are those that didn't. V'yesh makaymas shel oichlin ois, and there were those makaymas that did. Now, as far as I understood, in America, the minig was to not be makbid. Even those that were makbid on Chol Yisrael were not makbid on butter. But let's first finish the paragraph and then we'll discuss what happened. And if somebody travels from a community that they don't eat the butter to a community that they do eat it, even though you plan on going home, you're allowed to eat it. Meaning you live in, let's say, Farakwe, Lakewood. Lakewood, they don't have the butter. But then you come to Farakwe 5 towns for Shabbos. And in Farakwe 5 towns, they do eat the butter. So you could eat the butter. That's no problem. But the other way,
just wipe it off your lips before you go back to Lakewood.
Correct. Right. So if you go from a place that they eat the butter to a place that they don't, and then obviously you can't eat it because you can't be different from where you are. He says, I heard. He said that Zayfin is that they forge, meaning they fake it, and they say that the butter comes from the fats of a chazir. I mean, they don't say it, but that's where it comes from. Somebody who's concerned for his nefesh should distance himself. Nowadays, I think the OU, Rabbi Belsky certainly said this. Nowadays, I mean, again, the whole meaning of butter, yeah, butter, no, is whether treifa cheese, treifa milk could become into butter the same way maybe it can't go into cheese. So some held yes, some held no. That's the basic thing. Nowadays, they can make anything into cheese, right? So that's why many say nowadays you cannot rely on the ones that are meko. Okay, I know we have to do aleph, but aleph.
So that means you should be mocked. That means
if you're makbid on Cholav Yisrael, then you should be makbid on butter nowadays too. That's what they say. Yeah, that's what they say. I don't know for myself. I have no idea. But that's what.
What does that mean? You don't know what you do. You don't know if you have butter.
Oh no,
or not
I have.
butter?
It's listen. I mean, if I'm in the grocery store, I'm just going to get the Chol Yisrael one. But I remember when I was a kid, we didn't get the Chol Yisrael one. No, but since then,
I started telling my kid about it. He said, "What? Are you serious? So all the stuff that has butter we can eat?"
That's a good point, Taka. Right? All the cookies with
Chips
butter
and the pretzels and all of that.
Right. Yeah, they're very good.
So you know what? We'll discuss it.
You may be Taka. They might be onto something there. They might be onto something. Okay, this one we'll Matzah Shabbos we'll do. We'll start with Aleph. So let's what's that?